Hi, welcome back. I'm Maxwell, and I'm going to be reading The Fantastic Secret of Owen Jester by Barbara O'Connor. Let's start off on Chapter 9. Owen lay on his stomach on the dock and peered into the murky water till he sat on the bottom of the pond inside the perfect cage. Owen nudged him gently with a stick till he swam to the other side of the cage and nestled back down into the squishy mud. He likes it. Owen grinned up at Travis and Stumpy. But inside Owen something was niggling at him. A teeny tiny niggle. Barely noticeable, but a niggle. Nonetheless, the niggle was caused by a thought. The thought was this: maybe, just maybe, Tooley should not be in that perfect cage. Maybe he should be swimming freely around Graham Pond, gliding gracefully through the water, floating among the rotting oak leaves that had settled on the surface, stunning lazily on the moss-covered logs along the edges, instead of in a cage, even if the cage was perfect. Owen pushed the niggle away, and he tossed the stick into the pond and said, "Now we can go look for the thing that fell off the train." Travis and Stumpy let out a whoop. The three boys raced around the pond towards the train tracks. "What's that?" Travis said, pointing to a clump of weeds beside the tracks. Something shiny and round was nestled in among the prickly vines. Owen ran over and examined it. "A hubcat. Shoot," he said, kicking at the weeds. The boys walked glumly along the side of the tracks. Every now and then, one of them spotted something, and would point and holler. They'd all race over to examine it, but it was never anything that seemed like it might have fallen off the train and made the noise that Owen had heard. The thud, the crack of wood, the tumble, tumble, tumble sound. "Let's go to my house and get lunch," Stumpy said. So the boys headed back up the path through the woods, but they hadn't gotten far when Owen stopped. He snapped his fingers. "Wait a minute," he said. Travis and Stumpy waited. "Tumble, tumble, tumble," Owen said. Travis and Stumpy waited some more. "If something's tumbling, that means it's like rolling," Owen said. Travis and Stumpy waited some more. "So that means that whatever was tumbling is probably going downhill, right?" Travis and Stumpy looked at each other. "Yeah," they both said. "So?" Travis said. "So maybe whatever fell off the train isn't up by the tracks, where we've been looking, but more downhill from the tracks, like in the bushes and stuff," Owen said. Travis and Stumpy nodded and grinned, and high-fived Owen, and they all raced back to the tracks to search the bottom of the rocky, red dirt slopes that ran along the sides. They found a bicycle wheel that was with broken spokes. They found a bullet-riddled stop sign. They found the bent-up frame of an aluminum lawn chair. They found a middlewed, mud-covered sofa cushion. They found a grocery cart with 2 missing wheels. They found cinder blocks and broken bottles and rusty cans. "I'm sick of this," Travis said. "Yeah," Stumpy said. "Me too." Owen's disappointment swirled around inside him and then let out, then settled with a heavy thunk in the pit of his stomach. "Not me," he lied. "I'm going home," Travis said. "Me too," Stumpy said. "Not me." Owen jammed his hands into his pockets and strolled off, studying the ground, peering into the weeds and bushes, kicking at clouds of dirt, pretending like he didn't care that Travis and Stumpy were quitters. He glanced over his shoulder to see the 2 boys trotting up the tracks towards the path in the woods. "Quitters," he muttered under his breath. Owen climbed back up the slope and scanned the bottom of the ravine on the other side of the tracks. It wasn't nearly as much fun searching without Travis and Stumpy, but Owen was not a quitter. While he searched, he thought about Tooley and the niggle he felt he had earlier, that day came back. The more he thought, the bigger the niggle got. It grew and grew until it became a tangled up mess of worry. And in the center of the tangled up mess was the biggest worry of all. Baby Tully really was sad. And then, just as Owen's stomach was beginning to ache, something caught his attention. Something big. Something red. Down among the tangled bushes and scrub pines at the bottom of the ravine, beside the tracks, Owen hurried down the slopes, slipping and sliding on the loose dirts and rocks, pushing through clumps of brush and weeds. And then he stopped. He stood in gape-mouthed wonder. "Whoa," he said out loud. The tingle of the niggling worry in his stomach disappeared. Poof! Because lying there before him was the thing that had fallen off the train. Owen was sure of it. Next, I'm going to be reading chapter 10. Owen scrambled through the thick brush, ducking under low-hanging branches, climbing over rotting logs, prickers scratching his legs and snagging his clothes, as he made his way towards the thing that had fallen off the train, the thing that had made the thud. It was big and red and made of metal. But what was it? Next to it, jammed between two scraggly oak trees, was part of an enormous wooden crate. Scattered here and there among the brush and weeds surrounding it were pieces of wood, splintered and broken. The crack of wood. The red thing lay nestled at the bottom of the ravine, where it had rolled down the slope from the railroad tracks. The tumble, tumble, tumble sound. One last push through the weeds, and Owen was standing next to it. His mind raced. What was this thing? One end was rounded, like the nose of an airplane. On the other end was a small propeller. On each side was a short, stubby wing. There was a small propeller on each stubby wing. Was this an airplane? Owen didn't think so. The wings weren't big enough. There were no wheels, just a flat, box-shaped bottom. Beside it was surely too small to be an airplane. Owen could stand on tiptoe and see right over the top of it. Then what was it? Owen walked around it, studying it carefully. There was an enclosed compartment with 3 large windows in the front and one round, bowl-shaped window on each side. In back of the enclosed compartment was a hollowed-out space. Strapped inside the space were 4 large tanks, like the kind that scuba divers use. Painted on one side of the red thing, just under the bubble-shaped window, was a dolphin, a silvery dolphin, swimming through blue ocean waves. Above the dolphin, in swirling black letters, was written, "Water Wonder, 4000. "A submarine," Owen whispered. This red thing that had fallen off the train was a submarine. Owen peered through the windows. Inside was an instrument panel with a few glass-covered dials, some switches, and a joystick. In front of the instrument panel were 2 small seats. A submarine just big enough for 2 people. Owen had never seen anything like it. He ran his hand along the side of the submarine, feeling the smooth metal, tracing the dolphin, brushing dirt off the rounded nose up front, turning the little propeller in the back. He examined the top. There were a few small dents here and there, some scratches in the shiny red paint, but other than that, the Water Wonder 4000 looked perfect. Owen's heart was racing. Wait, just wait, until Travis and Stumpy saw this. Owen dashed across the yard towards the woods, followed by Travis and Stumpy. Pete and Leroy galloped along beside them, barking happily. "Where are you all going?" Viola's voice sliced through the air. Owen stopped. Travis and Stumpy stopped. Pete and Leroy ran in circles around them. Owen's face twitched. His fingers fluttered. His feet bounced. Why did Viola always have to show up at the wrong time? He could hardly wait to show Travis and Stumpy the little red submarine. He had told them he had found the thing that had fallen off the train, but he hadn't told them what it was. He wanted to surprise them. But now Viola was here, ruining everything, like she always did. "We're going to the pond to catch some snakes," Owen said. "Want to come?" Viola marched towards them, clomping across the yard in her flowered rubber rain boots. "You are not," she said. "We are too," Travis said. "And then we are going to dig up some big fat worms for Thule, those slimy gray ones that live in the mud down there by the pond." Viola narrowed her eyes and set her mouth in a thin, hard line. "Fibber," she said. Owen couldn't keep still. He bounced from one foot to the other. "Come on with us, Viola," he said. "You can stick your arm down in the water and touch Thule, if you're lucky. You won't get any leeches stuck on you." "There's no leeches in that pond," Viola said. Owen made a little pfft sound and rolled his eyes. "You think you know everything, but you don't," he said. He nodded towards Travis. "Tell Viola about the leeches," he said. Travis stared at Owen. Owen winked a tiny little wink and said, "You know, the leeches." "Oh," Travis said. "You mean them nasty, slimy, squishy, juicy leeches that stick on you and suck all your blood out?" Owen nodded solemnly. "Yep, that's the ones." "There's leeches down there all right," Travis said. Gerald Asher's brother went fishing down there once and got a leech this big stuck to him. Travis held his hand out about a foot apart, then widened them a tad more until that leech was about a yard long. Stumpy snorted with laughter, and Owen shot him a look. "You all must think I'm stupid," Viola said, resting one hand on her hip and cocking her head. Her voice had that usual and know-it-all sound to it, but Owen was delighted to see that she had turned a little pale. "We might even feed some leeches to Thule," he said. "Bullfrogs don't eat leeches," Viola said. "Besides, that frog does not want to be named Thule. Trust me." She brushed a strand of hair out of her face and added, "And he should not be living in a cage." Owen couldn't stand it another minute. The only thing left to do was holler, "Rocket." Thank you. That was chapters 9 and 10 of The Fantastic Secret of Owen Jester by Barbara O'Connor.